Well, I'm so excited to come to you this afternoon. We're coming from Baton Rouge, except for we have Kevan Chandler. He's coming from where it's cold. He's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Kevan, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Beth.
You've got such an incredible story. You've been in a wheelchair for 35 years. You have spinal muscular atrophy, which basically means your muscles have become atrophied correctly. Is that right?
Yeah. Basically, my brain doesn't tell my muscles how to move very well, and so just over time they've grown weaker, especially my arms and legs. So I spend my time in a wheelchair most of the time.
And this runs in your family. I read that your sister has it as well. So, I mean, was that a genetic thing, or do you? I'm sure you do know.
Yeah, it's genetic, but it's so rare. It very rarely shows up. I mean, we have some records of several generations ago, someone being weaker than most people, kind of thing. But it wasn't really until maybe the 80s that the 70s or 80s that people started knowing what spinal muscular atrophy was, and really only within the past 15 years or so that actual medicine to help with it has come about, and research has made some breakthroughs. So it's
Yeah.
been around, but not much history known about it before then.
So you're a creative guy because you like to be outside, and
Hmm.
you obviously have limited mobility. So in 2016, you had your friends carried you across Europe. How did that come about, and how did you find those kinds of great friends?
Mm. Yeah, I think it wasn't in the moment kind of thing. It wasn't a flash
Yeah.
of genius, but it was a long time coming of growing up in a home where we always had people coming into our home, or we were out in the community, with youth group and soccer and t-ball and missions trips and stuff, and so I've just kind of always been in a good community of people. And after college, I was part of a group of friends that had a potluck every week, and it was at different people's houses, and that wasn't always wheelchair accessible. And so we would leave my wheelchair in the van, and they'd carry me inside. And so after a while, we started asking, well, what, we can do that. What else can we do? And we ended up exploring the sewers in our hometown. We made the backpack, a very rough, rudimentary version of it, for them to carry me around as we explored the sewers, because we grew up on Ninja Turtles and thought that would be fun and cool, and it was. It was very gross and messy also, but we did that, and so we came out of that adventure on a Friday night and said, well, we survived that. What else can we do? And that's just kind of been our question all along. Is, well, we got through that. What else is there? And so in 2016 we headed out for Europe. That's a short version. We did a fundraiser. We designed the backpack. We figured out where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do. But in 2016 we left my wheelchair behind for 3 weeks, and these four guys took turns carrying me in a backpack as we explored France and England and Ireland, and it was an
Wow.
amazing experience.
I bet that was. I bet it was. So when you designed the backpack, because now other people can get the backpacks, I think you've sold several hundred, 1,200, I think I read.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that, because that's a game changer to be able to. I've seen the pictures of other families being able to carry around, someone in the wilderness on a hike.
Mm-hmm.
Wheelchairs don't hike very well, and if you're an if you're an outdoorsy person, then what a game changer, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when we went on the trip, we started hearing from families all over the world, and they were asking two main questions. The first was, where did you get this backpack? And the second was, where did you get these friends? And so we started a nonprofit to answer those questions, and worked with a great company called Deuter to develop our backpack further based on what we had done. And they made a factory version that's passed all the tests and is good to go. And we're actually now we're on version 2.0 based on feedback from families of, hey, Kevan needed this part, but most people don't, or Kevan didn't need this, but most people do, and making adjustments and making it more usable and versatile for more people. And so, yeah, as you said, we've got around 1,200 backpacks in 48 countries now, and
Wow.
it's 1,200 families that are thinking differently, very intentionally about accessibility and what that means, and saying, oh, that we can do this differently, and as a result, having adventures, and more importantly, having adventures together.
Yeah.
Because I see, like you saw on the website, I've gotten to see photos and videos of people going up live active volcanoes or across frozen ponds, or on a mountain somewhere overlooking just miles and miles of beautiful country. And that's all great, but what I'm also seeing there is an uncle carrying his nephew up the volcano, and mom carrying her daughter across the pond. And these families are getting to do things together in a way that they couldn't before. And so to answer your question, that um, what it means to me is, it's humbling and just amazing that that we get to be a part of their stories. This adventure that a couple of guys had. We were just being goofballs. We were just a bunch of guys having fun, and as a result, God has given us this gift of stepping into so many wonderful stories, and being part of something so much bigger than us.
I think that's so important. You've heard people say something similar to your biggest triumph. No, your biggest trial becomes your biggest triumph.
Mm.
Obviously, this has been a trial for you. This has been a tough approach to life for you. So, um, where has that been difficult for you? Uh, living with a disability for so long, perhaps as a child or growing up. What has been the hardest thing for you? I know you've gone through all the hard things already, but what do you say to people that they're like, man, I just don't know how we're going to make it through this diagnosis or accident? What got you through? Because I'm sure there were some really hard days.
Mm. What got me through was Jesus, and the hope that He brings me. In his letter to the Romans, Paul refers to our adoption as sons of God. He refers to it as the redemption of our bodies. And what that says to me is, it doesn't matter how broken my body is, the love of Jesus and what He has done in my heart. That's where my identity is, and it makes up for all the other stuff. And so there's a hope that comes with that, and a joy and a peace that comes with that. And I'm so thankful for that. My dad introduced me to Jesus when I was 6 years old, and I was having trouble wrapping. I thought I should be able to wrap my head around eternity, and because every 6-year-old should be able to do that, right? And my dad sat me down, and rather than explaining it to me or trying to, instead he introduced me to who I could spend eternity with, and ever since then it's been Jesus that's been by my side and never let me down. And the long weeks in the hospital, or you know, hard days when my progressive disease decides to progress and catches me off guard. Those things are hard to swallow, hard to handle, but I know that he's with me in it, and he loves me just the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to other families with disabilities or with um, you know, kids or a spouse, what do you wish they knew? Because, people try to do something to help people, and a lot of times it's not the right thing. What is
Mm.
the best way to help someone um, that is facing something like that would be more helpful and
Mm.
tactical as opposed to just throwing something at, how can I help kind of thing? What's
Sure.
something that's really helpful?
Yeah, well, if I can address both sides of that conversation, the family with the disability, I would first say that your your needs and your limitations are not they're not barriers to relationship. They're actually tools to relationship and to caring for others. And so as you um, look at your own needs, realize that it's a gift that you can give by inviting people into those needs and saying to yourself, how can I care for them through my own needs? For example, I need help with getting up in the morning or using the restroom or getting dressed, and all these things take um, they require focus, and they require intimate attention. The guys that come and help me get up in the morning, they can't be on their phone. They can't be running in and then running out. They have to come in and, focus on taking care of me. Well, my needs are being taken care of, so I get to turn all of my attention on what's going on in their life, and I get to listen to them and talk with them and pray with them and be with them, just be their friend. And so that's just one way that you can see your own needs as a not a barrier or a burden, but actually a gift and a tool. And so I'd say that to the disabled community, and I think you'll be surprised at how that change in posture changes people's reception of it. If you invite people in that way, people
Yeah.
people might say yes. And then to people who are able-bodied, and want to help, want to be a part of a family's community and a part of their support, I would, it's a scary thing. I had a friend who uh, he when I lived in North Carolina, he did a lot of traveling with me and took care of me a lot. And I asked him one day, I said, "Is this weird? Like what I asked you to do? I have you help me with all these different things?" And he said, this specific thing I was asking him to do. I said, "Is this weird?" And he said, "Kevan, everything you ask me to do is weird the first time, and then I do it, and I've done it, so it's not weird anymore." And it's a hurdle that I've gotten over. And so for people that are able-bodied and want to be more aware and more um, invested in families or individuals with disabilities, I would say uh, just step in as a friend first and foremost. Nobody wants to be like, nobody wants to be told, "I want to be your friend because you're in a wheelchair," right? That
Right.
doesn't work with any group of people. And so just you know, prayerfully look past the disability and see the value in the person, and cherish that and enjoy that. And from there should be an outpouring of, like, because I value and love this person so much, now I want to help take care of them. And I have friends who do everything with me. They travel with me, they help me with the shower, they do it all. And then I have other friends who, you know, don't do as much because of their own physical limitations, or just that's just not how they see themselves helping, and that's okay. So realize also, I think, to both communities, to both groups of people, maybe realizing that just, a friend doesn't have to jump in and do every single thing, but different people have different roles, just like any other friendship.
Yeah, I
And
think.
have fun with it.
Well, make the best of it, right? And
Yeah.
one of the things you've been able to do is live a joyful life despite having the disabilities. But you've traveled the world. You speak a lot. You're featured a lot in media, so you've met a lot of people.
Mhm.
What have you learned about the faith community, and just the perseverance of other people that you think inspires others to overcome maybe not a physical disability but an emotional one, or something, because there's some level of fight back that we all have,
Mhm.
survival mode. What have you learned about people and your traveling and speaking across international um, locations, just about the tenacity of people?
Mm. Yeah, I would say, I, I I would say that what I've learned is that everyone has needs. Everyone is disabled in some way or another, whether it is physical or emotional, or we're all spiritually disabled. That's why
Hmm.
Jesus
Sure.
came and died for us, and so we all have something, and so taking that and then getting to, as I share my story, I get to hear other people's stories, and like you said, I get to hear people say, wow, your story of traveling with your friends reminds me of this own thing in my life, or this thing, and getting to hear testimonies, and just being encouraged. I love hearing these stories of friendship, especially, and people coming around people, and there have been so many times when I'm signing books, or talking to people after an event, and they share a story, and I'm like, whoa, that's awesome! Like, you should be the one right here, sharing your story. And sometimes we do get to do that. We get to share other people's stories, and especially nowadays, as people use the backpack, they send us photos and videos, and I think something else too with that, Beth, is that um, you know we hear stories of amazing feats, amazing adventures, and amazing friendships, and people saying yes to crazy things and good things, and doing that. And something that I've learned about humanity is that when we hear those things, when we see those videos or photos or read those stories, there is something in us that I think God put there that we're like, I I want to do that, or I want to be a part of that, and
Hmm.
so it is a contagious thing, a wonderful thing to share stories and hear stories, and
Yeah, i
build.
think i think when oh, sorry. I
Oh,
think when people see your story about the four friends carrying you across Europe in a backpack, it reminds us of how lonely a lot of people feel. They don't have those kind of
mhm,
friendships, and it's an epidemic. Loneliness is a national epidemic. It's like been called that by the government, FDA, I think, and so most people long for friendships that have people that are there for them, that know their needs. And what do you say to someone and they're like, man, I just really wish I had a great network of friends like that, but they don't, because
mhm.
that's not as easy. They don't come knocking on your door. What do you recommend to find those people?
Sure. Yeah, I think, I get that question a lot of, I want friends like that, and my first response to that is, I nitch on my nose. But my first response to that is, well, um, are you that friend to others? I think that's the first step, and I think if you live up to a standard um, that you want to see in other people, then then uh, then you're gonna attract those people. And again, friendships have all different dynamics. There are some friendships where you're going to have to put more in than they do, or other friendships where they're really taking care of you more, and that's okay. And then there's the awesome, the best of the best, where it's reciprocal, you know, perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say 50-50, but it's like 100-100,
Yeah.
where you just click, and
Mm-hmm.
so but I think too, people look at my story and they think that the success of that is the number of friends or the size of the journey, the size of the adventure. But I think if you can find one or two people who see you and you see them for truly for who you are and for who they are, and 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 you're willing to sacrifice your own priorities for them, and they're willing to do it for you. Starting with one or two is more than enough, and then maybe again with it being contagious, like a positive mob mentality. People see you having a good time and they say, "Oh, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that." And I would say too, I had a friend that called or texted earlier and said, "Hey, can I come over?" Because in person is so much better than on the internet. No offense, since we're on the
True.
internet right now, but you're not going to find those friends necessarily on social media or online. You're not going to find those um, sustainable friendships. Those are great places to connect with people. But if you're looking for a friend to plumb the depths with, it's going to have to be in person.
Yeah.
It's going to require that effort, and it is an effort, especially in this day and age, because there's so many other options of other ways to do it.
In
But
other words, 5,000 Facebook friends don't count.
no, it doesn't.
Uh,
Unfortunately, but
right.
it still leaves a void that needs to be filled.
So let me give you one last question before we talk about the book, the kids' book, and the other books. People face obstacles in life, and as Christians, we're told to overcome those. But a lot of times we get stuck at a brick wall, and it may be a financial need, it may be a physical need, it may be a relationship need. And too often we're called to move forward without all the answers.
Mhm.
Um, how do you help people with whatever it is they're facing to realize, you've still got to keep going, and you can't give up, you can't quit, you can't give up on God, because God
Mhm.
doesn't give up on you. How do you get people to cross that hurdle and live that life of faith regardless of the circumstances?
Hmm. Yeah, these are good questions. So I'm going to go off a little bit on a slight. I'll step off for a second on a little side note that so I love to play backgammon. It's an old board game, uh, and the way it works is you can have a long term goal. You know that you want to get from point A to point B, but and you may have some strategies of how to do that, but every you can't make a decision on what you're going to do until it's your turn. And I don't I know some people don't like dice, but you get to your turn and you look at the board and you say, well, I want to get from point A to point B, but then you roll the dice and that's what you have to work with. And I
Yeah.
used to be a youth pastor, and I worked in a drug rehab for a while, and what I would tell all those guys that I would sometimes I would get to teach them backgammon, but I would say this is kind of how I live my life, which is um, I know sometimes I know the long term goals, but you also, when you're in a situation, you just have to look around and say, what do I have to work with, and what am I going to do today? And that's kind of how I was raised with my disability. That we would not literally, but we would kind of wake up in the morning and say, well, what do I want to do, and what can I do? And let's find a balance between the two, because you can push the limits on what you're able to do, and you can, if you have to give up on a part of what you want to do, that's okay too. But it doesn't have to be a black and white. And so yeah, just looking at your situation and prayerfully, with the help of the Holy Spirit and the community around you, um, make the moves that you can in
Yeah.
the moment.
And you don't have to always know every single thing and have a absolute point plan.
Right.
Sometimes you just got to work with what you got to work with. And I
Yeah.
think that's
And,
sometimes it's in the moment and sometimes it's a bigger plan, right?
yeah. Yeah. And then, you have that move, and then guess what? You get to make another move after that. And you're going to have different circumstances and resources. And so you make those decisions then. So, yeah.
That's good. So you decided to come out with a kid's book. You've shared your story as an adult version, but then you came out with We Carry Kevan, and you've got this whole ministry. You've got kids that you care for through the ministry. You support the causes of other people. It's not just about Kevan and Kevan's disability. You've made it about everyone's disability, anyone's disability. So let's talk about how that works and how people can access your resources and your book.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a quick side note, we made the children's book because so many families are using the backpack, and the person actually in the backpack is so young that we wanted them to be able to enjoy the story as well, and see pictures of me and say, oh, that's like what I do. But as we put it together, we realized this was a story of friendship and caring for others, and that seemed like a story worth sharing with the world. And so you can get the book on our website, or Amazon also. You can get both books in on the website and Amazon, and we have a package deal on our website. And while you're on there, as you mentioned, Beth, there's we do fundraisers for families that want the backpack. And so shipping it overseas gets pretty expensive. And so we have a causes page on our website, and you can go on there and read stories of families that have disabilities, but they want to overcome their limitations using the backpack, and working together. And you can give to that. And any cause that you give to on our website, once they get the backpack and share photos and videos and stories with us, you get those updates as well. And so it's a way to answer that second question of where did you get these friends? Is we want to help build a community around these families, actually around their need and their desire for adventure and a full life.
And you're building a whole community, because it's resources. It's not just let's talk about happy things. It's let's solve problems and give people tools. And the book is just the beginning of that. But the backpack and just the community of being able to share, what should I do about this and how should I go about that? Because you've built that community and people can use that as a resource. So the Facebook page, the website, people can join and follow and become a part of the community.
Yeah, that'd be great. The more the merrier.
Well, Kevan, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for traveling across with your backpack. It reminds us of the biblical story of the friends who lowered the guy on the roof. It's a modern day biblical story come to life. So thank you for sharing that. And I wish you and your wife blessings, even if you've moved out of the South and into the cold and you're growing vegetables. I hope they don't freeze.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.